use Eclipse or any other IDEs, integrated developing environment. Manually also we can do. Before IDEs, developers they used to do by using notepads for doing compiling, for doing compilations and the deployment. They used to use tools like ant tools or your Windows commands. By using Windows commands or by using ant tool they used to compile. But now we don't build, or we don't have, we don't need to have here like binding tools or that Windows commands. Directly you can build through your IDEs. IDEs built-in building support also they are providing here. By default they will build. While creating project itself, they are creating the required structure, and internally it will generate a building XML file also. Automatically it will build. So we don't need to worry about builds. Create a project. Which type of project it is? It's a dynamic project. It's a dynamic web access web project. The client first requirement is what? Client said, my application need to provide support in online. Through browser, any user, he need to able to reserve the ticket, reserve the car. So you have to make it as a web project, and in this web project you need to provide enterprise support also. But we don't need to use enterprise Java beans. If you want to use enterprise Java beans, here they given one project, create enterprise Java bean project. But enterprise Java bean project not required here while using Spring. Just to create a dynamic web project. The project name is? Yeah, the name, you just decide one name like Vola, DURGASOFT. Add server, Tomcat, runtime. So now I am adding runtime here. By default it will deploy into that runtime environment. And supercar or else some car rental system. My project name supercar. Create. And the required dependencies we need to add to project. All the dependencies we need to add to project. So I want to make this project by using Spring. So then the dependencies are what for this project? Add complete Spring jars. Use Spring 3 version, advanced version. Use Spring 3 version, add all dependencies from Spring 3. While using Spring 3 or Spring 2 dependencies, to use ORM, to use Hibernate jars are not required, right? Built-in libraries they will provide from Spring itself. So Spring will provide Hibernate jars also here. So for making my complete MVC application, what I required? For making complete MVC application, to build complete MVC, for making presentations, for making controller, for making business. For DAO. And for services. Which softwares I need to use? You need to decide. Which tools or which softwares you need to use? Which technologies you need to use? For view, what you should use? For views, HTML, you can use CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, you can use Ajax, and we have many tools like jQuery. We have AngularJS. You can use this AngularJS. Powerful tool, AngularJS tool. Directly AngularJS can talk with database. AngularJS and EXTJS, Bootstrap. You should decide which one we should use for presentations first. If you know jQuery and CSS, Ajax, you can go through jQuery. If you are comfortable with AngularJS, dynamic pages we can create by using AngularJS. Dynamically your pages can talk with databases, and life cycles like servlets by using JavaScript also you can manage. Some life cycle methods also you can implement. Extended JavaScript, this one also most popular one. And Bootstrap framework. You can use any framework. These all frameworks are JavaScript frameworks. Extended JS and Bootstrap, this AngularJS and jQuery, all these. So for presentation you can use all these. Or else, if you require dynamic tags from Java, you can use JSTL tags, JSTL dynamic tags. You can use JSTL tag library, or else you can use JSP custom tags. By using your JSP custom tags also you can prepare your UI from your simple Java Sun API, or else you can use Struts API, Struts tags. If you are using Spring, by using Spring tags also you can design. While using Spring in your project, can I able to use Struts tags? If I use Spring controller here, can you able to use Struts tags here? Only tag libraries from Struts and the remaining things from? Is it possible? For adding tags there are plugins, or to add controllers there are plugins. If you want to use Struts tags here, then controller should be Struts front controller, right? Can I use Spring front controller for Struts tags? Only Struts front controller I should use. I can integrate Struts with Spring, it is possible, but controller should be Struts controller. So then it is not possible. If the controller is Spring tags, I can't able to use Struts tags. So if I try to use Struts tags for my presentation, must that controller also should be Struts controller. So by using these components and by using this combination, the combination of this and this, I can prepare view pages. And coming to controller part, for controller part you can use Struts, MVC, or you can use Spring MVC. Here our choice, Struts MVC or Spring MVC. Use Spring MVC, Struts MVC or Spring MVC. The difference between both, Struts MVC is not having capability of dependency injection. It is not only the feature, Struts MVC is not having feature of RESTful web services integration. Web services you can't able to integrate, but default web services they given here. Default REST support, RESTful web support we have, web services. So that's why Spring MVC is most recommended. They given RESTful web services support, default integration support they given, but here you need to write the code. But in case of the Spring MVC, they given annotations along with your controllers. You can configure that annotations here. So that support we have here. And one more great feature, Spring MVC, it is providing us dependency injection support. So my view, I want to use Spring MVC here. This one is new project, right? So I want to start by using Spring MVC. So for controller part I want to use Spring MVC here. My choice is Spring MVC. And here tags, I mean views I want to design by using HTML and CSS, and I want to use jQuery here. And for client side validations I want to use JavaScript. These tools.
Server side also Spring MVC.
Yes, server side you can provide by using Spring MVC. And for dynamic tags I want to use Spring tags here. Spring tags. And one more thing, I want to provide services support also here, web services support. I want to provide services support. So here just I want to provide REST services support. RESTful web services support also I want to provide. So if I provide REST support, not only my browser, if you have any mobile application, that mobile application also they can access my controller classes from mobile application, not from mobile browser. In mobile application, if you have any application, that application also it can access my controller. And from any other applications, like if you provide service from your application, this booking you can do from any other applications. Like if you see this online movie bookings, or if you see online bus bookings, from redbus.com you can book for Kaleshwari Travels. They have their own booking site, but from Redbus also you can able to access that site properties. Means they are providing services. So that services access if you provide here, our supercar application, any other vendor also can access, any other application vendor, they also can access my application and I can provide services to them. So provide services support here, RESTful support provide here, REST services. So Spring MVC along with REST services I want to use. But coming to back-end layer, model layer, database. Here database I want to use Archil. Most of the times for commercial sites they will use Archil. Okay, for non-commercial you can use MySQL, or else you can go through Archil. So my choice is Archil here. And for model layer, for building businesses, I want to use Spring Simple Pozo classes. Spring with simple Pozo classes I want to use here for business. And for DAO I want to use, my choice here for DAO, Spring ORM. And I required services here. Transactions, security also I want to apply here. I want to provide JMS support. I want to provide log support. And any services have you need to provide timer support. Quad support also I want to provide here. Quad support. Quad. To add services we should use AOP. So these services to add to my application. For transactions what I can use? My choice is Spring transactions only. I don't want to use any container dependent transactions. If you use WebLogic or JBoss, they will provide container dependent transaction management, but I don't want that container management. Just I want to manage by using Spring itself. So I required here Spring, and I want to use only Spring security here. I don't want any container level security. For JMS, Spring JMS we have, but where I need to use, where I need to store that JMS queues or topics, you need to have a server. So for this JMS, I want to use again a server. We have Apache message queues. Apache MQ software is there. That application I want to use, Apache MQ message queues. So this JMS you need to integrate with this Apache MQ, Apache message queues. I have here Apache MQ software. Okay, I have that application. So Apache MQ I want to use here, Apache message queues, and for Quad, Spring given Quad service. Spring Quad I want to use here. For logging, simple log4j. Timer services. In a particular time interval, if you want to execute any service repeatedly, timer services we required. So that Quad implementations also we have from Spring. In Spring also they given Quad implementations. And to attach services, these services like boilerplate code. Services if you want to attach to your business. Independently if you want to attach, and independently if you have capability to remove. Instead of writing code along with your business. What I said, for business I want to use POSO classes, simple plain classes I want to write. For that plain classes, if you want to provide support, you required a proxy here. Proxies you required here. You can implement your own proxies, or else use Spring AOP here. Use Spring AOP. Spring aspect oriented programming, it will provide proxies. And for integration, what we should use? To integrate this proxy to controller, to integrate DAO to business, for integrating services to the proxy, what we require? How to do the integration here?
Business integration.
But the integration how to do in case of Spring? We used to do integration by using dependency injection only, right? You should require IOC. So for integration, we should have IOC. Spring IOC framework I want to use here. So I require to use Spring IOC, Spring AOP for services, Spring transactions for transactions, Spring security for security, JMS for sending JMS messages, and log4j for logging, and Spring Quad services to provide timer implementations. And for DAO, just I want to use ORM here for building model layers, simple poses I want to use here. To provide support for presentation and controller, just I want to use here Spring MVC. So for business just simple poses I want to use, and for services Spring transactions, Spring security, Spring AOP, like Spring you required services, Spring JMS, Spring Quad services. These are for services. And finally DAO part. For building DAO, I want to use Spring ORM. Which ORM support I required here? I want to use Hibernate here. And finally database. You can use any database. While using ORM, database is not big issue to us. You can use MySQL or Oracle. It's your option. So we need to create project structure now, right? We should have project structure. We should have project structure here. Create that project structure.